Welcome back into another episode of ROC Boys Football. We are continuing our 2022 NFL Draft Big Board, knocking out the next five guys on our big board, 11 through 15. Dill, I'm going to kick it off to you because you got one of my guys I included in my top 10 rankings. Tyler Linderbaum, center out of Iowa. Tell me what you see about him. We talked a little bit about him earlier. What are you seeing here?
Yeah, so just to kind of go over what you talked about is if he wasn't playing center, I mean, the way he dominated at his position was maybe more impressive than anybody else. So it's like the problem is the upside you could argue is maybe a little low because it's not the greatest trait. It's a little short,
Yeah.
a little like smaller than maybe you'd like. But God, the way he dominated is just he did everything. He was moved guys around at will, didn't give up anything in the pass, and is like actually an incredible athlete. So he's always getting up to linebackers.
Oh, yeah.
Just
His,
again, I think you could argue he was better at his position than anybody else was at theirs the whole country.
Yeah, I mean the athleticism, physical traits, or not, I shouldn't say athleticism, but physical traits don't bother me when you're putting out that type of film.
Yeah.
I had him squeak into my top 10 because I think he's just a top 10 prospect, even if you weigh in the positional value at center. You're seeing Creed Humphrey do some great things for Kansas City, posting actually the best run block grade out of any center. So Tyler Linderbaum, man, top 10 prospect. You have him at 11. I'm okay with that. Kenyon Green comes in for me. He's a guy did you not have him? You did not have him.
Nope, I got him at 12.
Oh, you do have him at 12. There you go.
So
he's
going
again
back to back with the big dogs.
Yeah, I mean, he's my 11th guy. I think again his film is really good. We're higher consensusly, me and you, than most of the draft community. This dude can play tackle, he can play guard, he can really play anywhere you want on the offensive line. I think he'll be a very good guard in the league, but I do think he has prospects to play tackle too. That versatility combined with the film we saw him putting out in the SEC, I think has him pretty firmly as a top 15 prospect. I don't know why people are hating. It's all the always his arm length for a tackle. Like, oh yeah, kiss my butt. Like he's still a very good football player.
I think like in terms of what you're looking for in a guard, he's kind of almost exactly like huge lower half, really powerful.
Nasty, yeah, he's got a little nasty in him.
Yeah, so I think in terms of guard, like his floor is like elite guard, and if he can give you tackle reps, like all the better.
Especially that versatility on that offensive line, as we're seeing. I mean, especially this year with the COVID, but I mean, offensive line guys, they get rolled up on, and having that depth and having that versatility to go play really wherever your team needs you and play there at a high level is very valuable. So we touched on your next two prospects. I got Garrett Wilson. You had him in your top 10. I have him just outside of the top 10. He's my number one wide receiver prospect. I am a huge fan of him. I think we talk about all the time, that it factor.
Ceiling.
Little Odell Beckham, kind of anything you want to look for in that wide receiver game. Gets good separation. He's good after the catch, very athletic, and he's phenomenal ball skills. When there's not separation, I mean, in that Michigan game, he just caught one right off Vinny Gray's helmet. One of the more incredible catches I've seen all year in the biggest moment, down 10-0, comes up big for his team. Benefited from a very, very good offense. But I think still what you see, the ceiling he could be in the NFL, I think he could be a very true one wide receiver, dominating kind of anywhere you want to put him. That's why he's 12th prospect for me.
He's of course part of that great offense. I mean, they had great wide receivers, and obviously was very much part of that. I agree. Just a really incredible athlete, great hands. I kind of love the Odell comp. I know we talked about it last pod, but that's kind of what I think about him. So,
and we'll get right. I guess we'll go back to back.
Yeah, why don't you say why you are hating on my guy Olave?
I'm not even hating. I'm not even hating. I think we've talked about it a lot. They're 1A, 1B for me. I think they're both very good. Garrett Wilson gets a nod because of that ceiling, but at the end of the day, Olave is a very, very solid wide receiver, probably the highest floor out of all of them. Extremely polished route runner, gets phenomenal separation, great ball skills, and he has jets when it's a straight. When he's running like a fly, I mean, he will run away from you. And that's kind of why he's right up there with Garrett Wilson. I just see a little bit more juice from Garrett Wilson, giving him the nod over Chris Olave there.
Yeah, that's fair. I think you did see probably Olave do some, or Wilson do some more impressive things. I just think I Mr. Perfect in Olave. The guy just for 4 straight years performed every game, every
Steady. Yeah.
sick.
Yeah, I agree.
So
And
I
again,
don't know.
if somebody were to take Chris Olave over Garrett Wilson, I'd be like, all right, completely fine with it. If it's my team, I'm taking Garrett Wilson on the upside, but I couldn't fault anybody. Let's get into your prospect, Devin Lloyd. Little rich for him, in my opinion. What are you seeing out of Devin Lloyd's game that has him as a top 15 prospect for you?
I think you're seeing a guy who is at least 2 years of like elite
Good play.
production.
Yep.
I can't remember if he was good
That was
3 years ago.
his
but I
breakout
know,
season, I believe, was last year.
So I know that's 2 straight years of really dominant play. I think you got physical traits that you love because bigger. I mean, like when you compare him to Kobe Dean, he's got the 6'3", 240-pound frame. I don't think he is as explosive as Dean, but
Yeah.
he's everywhere. He's where you want him to be. I think he can be the quarterback of your defense. He was also the alpha dog on a defense that was very, very good. So I think he kind of has, if you're looking for a kind of your premier middle inside linebacker, I think he is inside linebacker. I should say that's redundant, but I think he's your next guy, and I think that's a super valuable position. So I think that's a fair spot to put him here for me at around 13.
I was waffling on him, giving him that 15th spot there. What I worried about Devin Lloyd, seeing him, is just I don't know if he's quite got that juice, that explosive.
That's fair. That's the one thing that comes to mind. Like, you wish you saw more of like flying at guys more consistently. I mean, he makes a lot of big plays, but there's a difference between him, Kobe Dean, and Devin White, and maybe even Devin Bush as like college guys where they were flying around all the
over
time.
the field. And Devin Lloyd, to his credit, like he's probably one of the smarter, just like Kobe Dean is, one of the smarter linebackers in this class. He has also phenomenal ball skills. I think he had 3 interceptions this year. I think 2 last year. Don't quote me on those stats, but I know he's a converted safety wide receiver prospect. So very comfortable kind of getting in those passing lanes, playing the football. And he's very smart. I mean, he's behind the line of scrimmage, double-digit TFLs. He blitzes very well, more off the edge than what Nakobe Dean did, kind of through those A-gap blitzes. Yeah. But, like, I like his game. I just don't quite see the juice to put him as a top 15 prospect at that linebacker position where it's maybe a little lesser the positional value. Getting into my next prospect, Sauce Gardner. He's my CB2. I absolutely loved what I saw out of him. Just put together a phenomenal career for the Cincinnati Bearcats. Very long. You worry about like that long speed though. Like, can he run with guys down the field? That being said, he's phenomenal getting his hands on you, and you're only going to be as fast as I let you. And one thing that worries you about him: 7 flags this year, 7 flags last year. So maybe a little bit handsy, but I'd kind of rather teach you to clean that up than teach somebody to be a little bit more physical. And what pushed him into the top 15 for me is we got to see what you can do against those Bama wide receivers. And he put together a very, very good.
He didn't give up anything deep, really.
And the only reason they gave up yards, Brian Robinson ran for 200 yards. But like through the air, like Bryce Young looked very uncomfortable. There wasn't much separation for his wideouts.
And one thing I kind of noticed about Gardner is I think he's more versatile in terms of being able to play both the zone and man. I think for a bigger, longer corner, he does a fairly good job sticking on guys and not but I also think he has the ability as a bigger guy, and Cincinnati used him a little bit in the zone, maybe not as much as he was playing man, but I think he can do both, and I don't think that's a bad thing anymore now that the name of the game is kind of switching your defense up and keeping QBs guessing. So I think that's what he gives you. And I'll just jump right into the first corner after Stingley I have. And I know you're a big McCreary guy.
I am a big McCreary guy.
McCreary to me is the premier follow corner, press man, play
Yes.
the other team's number one every time, and get the job done. I don't think that's what that's what pushes him up to the number two cornerback for me. Is he plays that kind of lone wolf alpha dog corner role more than
Yeah.
I'd say anybody else. I think you love that in the corner. And
Oh yeah.
he didn't play a ton of zone at Auburn. It didn't look like to me. But I don't know. I think when you're that kind of guy, that's just a huge mentality for a corner.
Roger McCreary's film in the Iron Bowl against John Mechie, Jameson Williams obviously gets ejected for targeting, was extremely impressive. Now, John Mechie did get the best of him a couple times, specifically on that 2-point conversion to win the game. But Roger McCreary held his own against probably the best quarterback wide receiver duo in the country with Bryce Young, John Mechie. And the times he got beat really was just perfect route, perfect throw. There wasn't much space on those quick slants that he gave up yards in, and he was always right there to make the tackle. And a lot of times he was just straight up beating John Mechie. Not much separation, made a play on the football, and they were kind of leaving him on an island. You kind of knew they were going to go to John Mechie because Jameson Williams was out, and Roger McCreary put together a masterclass film on John Mechie there, and that's kind of what I love to see. What you just said. I'm gonna follow your number one wide receiver wherever he lines up, slot or to the boundary, and I'm gonna stick on him hip to hip, and he did that really, really well. And that's what you gotta love.
That's what's got him up there for me. Is I think I do like Gardner's right up there too, and I think versatility is better, size better, whatever. But God, when you watch a guy follow around John Mechie all day or follow around anyone else, that's just how they played. I love that. So that's kind of what
Roger McCreary is going to be my next cornerback. I think I have Sauce Gardner a little bit better because that length and his physicality. But Roger McCreary, man, he's a good football player. Let's get into George Karloftis. He falls a little bit for you. Definitely lower. You're lower on him than the rest of the NFL draft community. What do you? I guess you can talk about what you love at the end of the day is top 15 prospect, but maybe what is also kind of holding you back from that top 10 prospect ranking that many other people have him in.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this in a couple of videos now, but just a guy who does not show any sort of elite bendy ability and flexibility on the edge. And I think it's just so hard to win in the NFL if you can't do both.
Yeah.
I mean, the tackle's bigger, stronger, whatever. Like you got to be dynamic. You got to be able to throw a bull rush, and you got to be able to throw a straight speed rush. And I just don't see that from him. I think what you love is that he does a really good job disengaging with blocks with his hands. And of course he is a power, really elite bull rusher, but I don't know. It's hard for me to put him up top with really the kind of the elite of the elite in the maybe top 10 range, just because what are you going to do in the NFL if you don't have the athleticism? And I'm not sure he's quite clearing it to be the elite top dog.
Yeah, and that's why he's not a top 5 prospect, but having that power and that get off at that size and being that strong and violent, I think has some sort of value. If you clean up, the technique's not horrible, but if you clean up and give him some more pass rush moves, I think he can be very, very solid. And having a solid edge defender who can collapse a pocket like George Karloftis can, probably the best at collapsing a pocket. Maybe Jermaine Johnson's also up there with that, but I think there's certainly some value there. He's no Von Miller who's just going to beat you with the bend and the speed combined with that strength, but there's certainly some value there. And I mean, again, top 15 prospect. We don't hate him that much, or you don't hate him that much.
Yeah, and how I could kind of see him as being your first down D end and maybe second and third. I think he could kick down into the D tackle spot and give you some decent reps at if you want to go into more of a pass rush
rocket
system.
Package, yeah.
Also, I think he can stand. I mean, he was very stout in the run game, obviously. So that's an added benefit that maybe he has possibly over everybody else. So
yeah, Hutch especially was very good in the run game, but
no, I'm not saying they're bad, but he's
very good at it.
He's very good.
All right, last prospect we got to talk about on our big board, Jameson Williams, a guy I was surprised you didn't have him in here. again, I wasn't sold on him. I had him as my wide receiver 3 even before the ACL tear. That being said, when I got into his film, my preconception of him is like, does this guy only win with speed? Like the only highlights, the only like production I'm seeing from him is winning just running past people. Bryce Young laying in a dot and him running for a touchdown. And that's certainly probably his best part of his game is that deep threat and just the elite speed. That being said, I mean, he's pretty good at creating separation underneath and winning on those intermediate routes. And yes, the ACL tear is very concerning, but we're seeing guys bounce back from ACL tears pretty routinely at this point. Not saying it's going to be easy for him. George Pickens looks like he's coming back and getting into that full strength, and guys like Dalvin Cook make it happen. I'm not too concerned. One thing I am concerned with is when you miss that first year, that's a lot of development that you kind of you
Yeah.
get into that system, and if you're sitting out for what might be like the first half of the NFL season, missing the OTAs, the mini camps, that's a little bit concerning for me. But this dude's physical traits are disgusting. He's very fast, but he also like can change directions, speed up, slow down really well, create separation much more than I give him credit for. Maybe not as quite as well as Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, but it's part of his game, and that's kind of why I have him in my top 15. Elite speed can
Yeah, and
don't run
I
ball,
don't know.
change the
I
game.
wouldn't. I think the thing that stands out about him is an elite deep ball catcher. I think he can catch it in traffic. He locates the ball. He is premier deep ball guy. I just think at the end of the day, I think he is less complete than the other two,
Yeah,
Olave and Wilson. And I
yeah.
think, frankly, like, yeah, he sat behind them at Ohio State, and I like, who am I to say Ryan Day and his staff are like crazy? Like, when they were missing something everybody else wasn't. It's like at the end of the day, that those coaches decided those were the top two dogs. Jameson Williams
Top three
obviously
dogs.
incredible.
Jackson Smith-Njigba would also be a top 15 prospect if
Yeah,
he was eligible.
yeah. So like that's kind of I think Jameson Williams probably right up there with my third wideout, but uh yeah, I don't think again, it's more just liking these other guys. Like he'll be right around the 18 range, but
Yeah.
so I'm not going to quibble. I'm a little surprised you had him up this high. I thought you
I
were more of
once
a
I
JMO hater, but
once we talked about him in the position rankings and I got into that film, like I realized there's a lot more to this kid's game than just catching that deep ball, and I really liked it. Especially when he was the only guy, like when he had to go win when John Mechie goes down. I mean, he was on pace to just absolutely break Georgia. He probably would have caught for 150 plus yards. And tore his ACL in what the second quarter after having like 6 catches for 50 something yards. Uh,
yeah,
he was on pace to play really well. Wanted to come back in, which kind of got me excited just because he's like it meant a lot to him. He wasn't just thinking about the NFL. There's all those nerds who are saying people are going to opt out. Dude tore his ACL and wanted to go back and play for his team. Uh, yeah, I like that about him, and so that's why he cracks my top 15. And we'll be back. Do you have anything else you got to say on any of these prospects before we wrap up here?
Jameson Williams, an elite punt gunner.
Hey, man,
Not sure why
that's
he was
also
playing,
that
but
I'm not either, but that just speaks to that his personality,
he's
his
a gamer.
mentality, man. Like he wants to go help his team any way you can, and that means
Yeah,
a lot to a lot of NFL coaches.
he
Um,
he actually tried on it. Was obviously who he was,
obviously
so it's cool.
trying too hard. Um, but anyways, appreciate y'all guys watching us. The top 15 prospect rankings. We'll get through 16 through 20 in the coming episodes, and just kind of building this out. Again, it's scheduled to move around. I already moved around some guys in my top 10, and we'll keep you updated on those movements as guys test and as they have their pro days and if they get hurt, unfortunately. With that, appreciate you guys stopping by, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.